Good afternoon. Today is May 5th, 2026. So it's Cinco de Mayo, 2026. And it is 2:30 p.m. US Central Time. My name is Reinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano, and I'm recording this video from my office located at the 2302 Britton Ridge Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. And this property, this office, is located 300 feet away from the residence of Mr. Robert Mueller, who is a former director of the FBI. And that is relevant to this conversation. So, so this is the second part of the demonstration D135, which I recorded the first segment earlier this morning. And after I recorded that, I kept looking at a few things, and I understood a lot of things that are interesting. And I have to tell you, this is I think it's probably the second time. I mean, this is a major event. What I realized this morning, and I think it's equivalent to when they leaked. I think it could be to that level of importance to when they leaked the entire database of crypto payments and properties in the world to me in 2024. And ironically, in that time, it was leaked to me by the Moleros and by this character Rodolfo Vargas, who was really a Molero, and Andres Salvador Mendez and all of them. I mean, that was on 2024 because they were harassing me with this technology tool that was a clone of Uber. But they harassed me to a point that it allowed me to see that they were using a database, a GeoIndex, and that allowed me to find it on the internet because they had to have this thing hosted on the internet. So all their phones can download it without, having, triggering suspicion on the FBI, for example. Right? They can have this database in the dark web, right, for example, because that would be suspicious. So they have to hide it in plain sight on the internet. So that's what happened in 2024. But I realized this morning that what happened yesterday, I mean, the last few days, right, with the two police officers harassing me coming, to the side of my vehicle, to the passenger side to inspect, to try to understand what is the tool that I have in there, that I had in there. I don't have it anymore, just so you know. So don't even waste your time. I'm not gonna carry it anymore. For the time. But that allowed me to understand that I mean, the fact that they triggered that, right, allowed me to understand the importance of Rodolfo Vargas, really, right? And the informant told me, right, but the fact that they went into such a panic to dispatch a second police officer to do exactly the same thing as on March 19 confirmed to me how important he was. And then the information about the Lamborghini and those things, it all came together. And now I understand, and I started checking this morning, and this is this is exactly. I know exactly what they're doing, how they're doing, what they're doing, and how they're doing it. I figured it out. So this is equivalent to finding the other database, right? The database of that has the relationship targets to agents or agents to targets. Because the other database that was leaked to me on the year 2024, was about crypto payments and properties and antennas and things, right? Operational points. But this is about relationships between people. This is a different database that I did not have until today. Now I have it. And it's amazing. It's interesting. Right? But before we get into the details on how this database works, I want to think out loud a little bit with you about the mistake, right, that they made again, like the same mistake, because it seems like a repetitive mistake that they make, and that is, well, it's first of all, it's interesting, right, to see and perhaps try to understand why they make these mistakes often, the same mistake, the exact same mistake, and secondly, what is, I mean, there must be something on their structure or maybe in their culture or philosophy, like there is something systemic here at play. that makes this mistake repeatable over time. And understanding what that is an important thing, right? I have to think way more about this. I don't know exactly what it is, but there is something that is causing this to be a repetitive event in time. This is not random. This is not something that happens randomly. I mean, they make the same mistake dozens of times, because I mean these are the two major events, right? The 2024 and now the one on Cinco de Mayo, right? 2026. So the first one was on 9/11, 2024, and the second one was on Cinco de Mayo, 2026, 18, 19 months after, right? 20 months after. Um, but they have made similar mistakes in the past. Like, I mean, dozens of them. Like, that's how I discovered Liana Technologies. Like, that's how I discovered the attack on the Google queries. That's how I discovered the CTR attacks. Like, there's been a process of years of dealing with them, and I you know reverse engineered their technologies dozens of times. This is not the first time, right? Or this is not even the second time. So there is something systemic here, right? And I don't know the answer, right? But what I can tell you is that it feels like part of the problem is that there is a group of people that design the weapons and standardize them for them to be deployed worldwide, to be used worldwide by people that are not technically inclined necessarily, right? Like this, for example, Rodolfo Villamizar, he doesn't necessarily understand why is that the car that was assigned to him was a Lamborghini, right? He's just happy that he's driving a Lamborghini, but he doesn't know why. He doesn't know that it's because there is a recording of me driving a Lamborghini in 2012 in Cancun that was produced, designed and produced by the team of Gillian Walsh in New York, and it got uploaded and given to the Chinese intelligence, right? Like, he doesn't understand those things. If he knew that, he wouldn't drive that Lamborghini, and he wouldn't, he would avoid that. So it's interesting, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is that it feels like the problem here really is that the operators, and I'm telling you this because maybe other countries, even Western countries, right, that are on the receiving end of this, maybe they make the same mistake in other things, right? So I don't know. Maybe this could be helpful. I don't know. But it feels like the mistake is abusing the weapon, right? Like it's giving a weapon to an operator that doesn't understand that if they abuse the weapon, it will be reverse engineered by the other side, right? And the operator, because they're thinking on their own benefit, they try to use the weapon as much as they possibly can, and maybe they even come up with creative ways of using the weapon that were not even thought of by the designers. But these creative ways maybe were not really implemented by the designers because they carry risk, because that way of using that weapon is observable, right? For example. So I don't know. I have to think more about this, but it feels like it's the abuse of the weapon, really, the weakness, right, of this type of networks. Oh boy, yeah. So let me tell you, right? So uh, let me start by this. Right? Let's go back to Rodolfo Vargas, right? Because that's a good anchor point, both for law enforcement, investigators, DOJ, etc., and for, I imagine, right, people that study how do you call that, criminology, right? I imagine, right, this probably will become something that people will study. I mean, not what I'm saying, but the crimes that they're doing, right? So Rodolfo Vargas, I think, would be a good anchor point for both worlds because well, you will see, right? Let me show you. So if we search again for Rodolfo Vargas, right? So you see, in this is one of the top ranking pages in Google for Rodolfo Vargas, and you have his photo, and this is the video of the Lamborghini, right? That in question, right? That this basically gave all this away. Um, I mean, all that I'm going to tell you, I mean, even like the things that I've already told you, were given away by this, right? But the things that I found now are also going to be given away by this directly. So, I think we should all take a moment of silence to thank, uh, you know, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but if you do, thank your gods and thank, Rodolfo Vargas and the Molero family, really, for giving us all this knowledge, because this wouldn't have been possible without them, their effort and dedication. And Diosdado Cabello, like, we also have to be thankful to Diosdado Cabello for leaking out this information to everybody. Uh, so anyhow, you see that presence, when you see this video, right, in this page, you think, I mean, that this was what I thought, right, that the informant corrected me and told me this is not ego, this is design. But you see this video of him driving the Lamborghini, and like the license plate is visible in the video, like his name is in the title of the video. Like, you would think it's ego, right? But it's not ego. Like, this is design. Like, this page, as at the end of the previous segment, you saw that this page, I mean, we saw together that this page has keywords that are tied directly to me, that are very relevant to me. And if you score things like my resume, uh, things that I've written in newspapers or in different places about technical topics with the Google's Moped scorer of search, if you score all the things that I've written, my technical emails, my work emails, things like that, you would come up with a set of keywords, right? And you rank them by frequency, like how frequent Reinaldo types these keywords. You rank the keywords by frequency. The top, I don't know, 20 keywords are present in this page, directly or indirectly, right? So these, if you, I mean, by conversely, if you run the same scorer on this page, on all the text and the metadata of this page, and on that of the videos that are and images that are present on this page, you will get a very similar set of keywords. The similarity, if you compute the cosine similarity between the two sets of keywords, is going to be close to 1, which means they're very related to each other. And this is exactly the way this database that they have, again, hidden in plain sight, works, is by creating web pages in Google and content in Google that allows them to infer with high precision and no ambiguity the relationship between a target and an agent, meaning how close they are, how closely related, how physically close they are, and also what is the context of the interaction. If it's a romantic interaction, if it's a work interaction. For example, the reason why they stuffed this page with the PHP keyword is because this is a work interaction. His job is not to be my lover. His job is to steal my intellectual inventions. That's the relationship of him to me. And the way these relationships in this particular page, in this example I'm giving you, and again, I have to give you again the disclaimer that I'm going to talk about personal situations of my life, but it's because that's the only thing that I have context about, right? And that's how I can see the things, because I have the technical knowledge to understand what they're doing, and also have the background context on my own experiences of all my life, personal experiences, right? And I can see how they stuff these pages with keywords that are relevant to me. And this is what makes this weapon so insidious, because it means that only the target can see it. If I go to the FBI and tell them all this, like I imagine, right, after recording 135 declarations, right, as I've done with this one, and if I count the hours, right, it would be in the probably more than 1,000 hours. I don't know, 500 hours. I don't know exactly, right? But it's going to be hundreds of hours. I imagine, after, with all that I've shown, that they will believe me, right? That they will, at least give this a look. But if I'm a random person, right, that never worked at Google and comes up with this allegation, any FBI agent will think that person is crazy. Right? But because I have the knowledge and I have the context of my own experiences, I can see what they're doing. Right? But this means also that only a very small set of people in the world can see this. It would have to be people that worked at Google specifically, and it would have to be people that are aware that they're being harassed with this technology. So it's a very small, narrow set of people. Right? So it's like very hard to find a person that can see this. And this is what makes this weapon so effective and so insidious. So anyhow, what I was telling you is that if you score the keywords on this page, it will tell you that he's related to me by work and that he has an indirect relationship, romantic, to me because of the sister. And that is encoded in the fact that the wife is called Cecilia Vargas, right? And Vargas is the last name of a former girlfriend that I had in Montreal. And that word is put in the title. And the fact that it's in the title gives that keyword a lot of weight. So this is signifying to the scorer in a way, I mean, the placement of Vargas in the title, that the Vargas is a very important thing. And when they score my keywords, they understand that it's important because it's in the girlfriends or romantic interest section in the index, right? In their Bizarro index of Google, in their Bizarro version of the Google index is what I mean. So that what I'm describing is the mechanics on how the relationships are encoded. So this is the reason why for key agents they have to create these public web pages, right? Because the web pages on themselves is what encodes the relationship. It's the database. This web page is really a database row that says this guy is a harasser of Reinaldo Marcano, and he has an indirect relationship to him via a romantic link. And there are other web pages of other people that contain other rows that are related to me. And there are other web pages that contain other rows that are related to other targets. That, of course, those I cannot understand because I don't have the context of those targets. I don't know their experiences, right? I don't know if they drove sometime a red Ferrari, right? But it's possible that if somebody has that experience and is a target, there will be a page equivalent to this, but with a red Ferrari. You see, to mark who is the brother of the romantic interest that is harassing this person, right? With the courts and kidnapping the children and all that. It's standardized. This is standardized. So let me give you an example, right? So let me give you. So I started by the most granular thing. I started by showing you how they encode a row. This is like a row in Excel, in an Excel sheet, really. This web page that you're seeing, right? And as you can see, they created multiple web pages in LinkedIn, like with the same thing, like, co-founder of the PHP agency. You see, the PHP keyword is present a lot of times in these pages, right? Like you can see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, more than 20 times in a single 16 times. Sorry, 16 times in just a set of 10 results. Imagine that, right? So this is, I mean, all these pages are stuffed with keywords in this way. And this is to increase the topicality of the Google Knowledge Graph entity of him for the keyword PHP. So they're really doing this with the knowledge graph of Google, right? But because they're doing it with the knowledge graph of Google, which is the main weapon of attack of Liana Technologies, the side effect, I mean, what you're seeing really here is a side effect, that these pages rank high in Google search because they increase the topicality of the entity that represents him in the knowledge graph. So the real weapon of attack is the knowledge graph, really. But as a side effect that leaks and is visible, this happens, and then I can see it, you see? So this is how they encoded rows, by stuffing keywords into the knowledge graph entity, really, via injecting keywords in websites and videos and things like that. But now I'm going to show you something more interesting, right? I'm going to show you a trick. I'm not going to tell you how it works yet, but I'm going to show you a trick that, I mean, it's something that anybody can do. So you can go to, let's do this example, okay? Let's go to images.google.com, okay? And this has a feature, which is you can click on this icon, that is a photo, and you can, I'm just showing you a feature of Google, right? You may be aware of this, you may not, but I'm going to show it to you just in case you're not aware. You can upload a file, and I'm going to upload a file. I have some files stored in my, I haven't tested this because I don't want them to modify them, right? But I have some files that I saved. So I'm gonna test it, right, and see what happens. So let's start with this, right? Right. So if you click on visual matches, right, then you can see photos that look similar, right? Let's do another example. Let's do Paul. So I have a photo of Paul. Paul is somewhere over here. This is better because it's only one person, right? Maybe it will find. Yes, it found it, right? So it finds that this is a photo that is present in this website. Now, this website, if you open it, it will take you to Reinaldo Medina photography. Now, note the Reinaldo. That is very important, right? And you can see that in the URL, reinaldomedina.com. Now, Reinaldo has my own name, Reinaldo, right? It's a full match on my first name. This is very contextual to me, right? And this Reinaldo photography person is here in Houston, and he is my photographer. Like, he was introduced to me by Suleiman Molero Villamizar, formerly known as Gloria Espina. And he came to my home to take photos of, like, for example, a work portrait for work, right? For to put it in my profile at work. Or he took to wants to take photos of the baby when the baby was 1 year old, right? Things like that. He would take our family photos in December, right? And he has my first name. I always thought, what a coincidence, right? That my photographer has my first name. But now I understand it's not a coincidence. This is design, right? So you see what they do, and now I'm gonna jump into this, right? What they do is that this thing of creating web pages is so standardized. I mean, the Lamborghini example is just one implementation of this technique, but there are many other implementations, and one notable one is the photographers. So and there's many of these photographers like Reinaldo Medina. Imagine every target has a photographer, right? And the idea is, in this page of the photographer, they have the important agents categorized by vertical in what is their role. So, for example, in the fitness category, there is Gloria Espina, which you can see her in a photo here. Bree Hardy is also here. Oh, they already removed Bree, I think. Yeah, so this one on the left is Bree Hardy, right? This one, which is the director of the Villa Sport complex, which they use to have her meet with Andres Salvador Mendez using the house that is on the back, on the Bank Court Street. Like, if you're an investigator, you probably know already about this, right? So they have a house. Let me show you. They have a house behind the Villa Sport. Okay. Right. So this is the Villa Sport where Bree works, right? She's a director of sports. And they have this house on the back that has a direct line of sight to the studios, to the windows of the studio where Suleiman Villamizar takes the Zumba classes. Right? So this allows them to communicate visually, to place things on that backyard to signify things, for example. And it also allows, so what they do is that Andres Salvador Mendez comes to this house. I mean, before, I imagine she would go to that house, right? And it's an easy, it's a short distance, it's under surveillance, and it's safe. But under these circumstances, what they would do, they would have Andres Salvador Mendez walk from the backyard on this green space and then come on the back to the Villa Sport, and that way they can meet, right? Because they have the Villa Sport complete. The Villa Sport is an operational base of the Iranians, like that is heavily controlled, right? So that's how they meet. That's why she is on this stage of conflict, where the conflict, I mean, not with me, but between these countries that are trying to get rid of me, right? And she still meets with him is because they meet on that control environment, using that house as a jump point for him. But anyhow, that's pretty hard, right? But going back to the topic of Reinaldo Medina, so what they do with the photographers, right, is that it gives them an opportunity to place the important agents in these pages, and then they're categorized, right? So in this page, there is Paul, who is Bree Hardy's boyfriend, supposedly, right? Imagine he's really husband, but they portrayed him as a boyfriend, and he was the owner of the first gym where I met Bree Hardy and the Kilpatrick, Ross Daniel Kilpatrick, for the first time in my life in 2015, sorry. So they first had a small gym, but when they escalated things, they built the Villa Sport, like in 2018 or something like that. When they saw that I was able to produce technology worth stealing, I imagine, right? They escalated the setup for her to make it more secure. And this is around the time when she started going to Reinaldo's photography to take these photos. And the reason why they needed to take these photos with her was to place her in this page, to mark the other agents that are working on her team, like Bree Hardy. I'm surprised that Ross Kilpatrick is not in this page. Maybe he is, and I haven't seen him, right? But what I can tell you is that Paul is more important than Ross Kilpatrick for this little project that they have. And Brie Hardy is obviously very important because otherwise they wouldn't be in this page. Now, Jenny Espina, who supposedly is the sister of Gloria Espina, who is really Zulema Villamis Armolero, is also on this page. It's this person over here, but I'm pretty sure that's not really the sister, right? For many reasons, but she's close to her, but she's not really the sister. But anyhow, so you see, this gives this network, I mean, this thing with the photographers, right? An opportunity to place important people in categories, right? So this is the fitness category, right? They have another category called, for example, corporate, right? And in this category, I recognize people that, for example, there is a photo that I don't know if it's exactly him, but if it's not him, it looks very much like him. It could be Crespo, right? Juan Antonio Crespo, I think is his name. This guy, right? I mean, it's identical, right? Maybe it's not him really the photo, but it's identical, and that's enough because the goal of this photo is not to really to identify the agent. It's really to give a computer model that they use afterwards the features, right? So if this photo resolves in that, if you upload this photo to an equivalent of the images of google.com that I showed you 5 minutes ago, and it resolves to Juan Crespo, that is enough, right? It doesn't really have to be the person. It has to be a person that looks alike. So the theory is that what they're doing is that they have an image classifier very similar to the image of google.com, but that has been trained not on the public internet, but on the set of their agents. And they're running that thing in parallel, privately. It's not exposed to the world, it's exposed only to their systems. Or maybe it's exposed to the world, but it's not advertised, right? And then what they do is that when they want to identify an agent, for example, if Gloria Espina or Zulema Villamizar passes in front of one of these surveillance cameras of the car takes a photo, right? And that photo ends up being executed against the Google classifier and the private classifier that they have, the secret one, right? And only the real agents will be present in the two sets. So she will be present in the Reinaldo Medina set, right? It will resolve to this page that I just showed you, where her photo in the fitness photos is present, right? And then when they run it against the second classifier, which is the secret one, she will resolve to her real name or to a code name or whatever, right? But she will resolve to something, high precision. And that is a signal, I mean, the co-occurrence of the presence of the same image of the same person, the same likeliness of the same person being present in the two data sets signifies that this is an agent. And not only that, it automatically tells their system that this agent is related to Reinaldo Medina. And they know because of the first name match that Reinaldo Medina is the marker for Reinaldo Aguiar-Marcano. He is the bizarro Reinaldo Aguiar-Marcano in a way, right? Because he's in Houston, he's called Reinaldo, and their system is informed of this. So the only relationship that they really need to store is the relationship between Medina and Aguiar. They need somewhere to store that Medina in Houston signifies Aguiar-Marcano or Medina photography, right? And that's enough. With that, and the setup of that website that they have with Reinaldo Medina, it's enough to resolve the identities, the relationships, and the roles of hundreds of agents if necessary. They don't need to have anything else because they have the agents already categorized by categories in this photography website, right? Now, in this corporate, at the bottom, there's a character that is interesting that I think is somebody important. It's this character over here. And I'm not going to give much details of why and how I know this, but I think this person is important. He's an important player in this thing. Now, and they put the other stock photos to create noise, right? So I mean, if you don't know what to look for, I know because I know the context. I know Brie, I know Paul, I know. Now on Paul, I have to tell you, I've seen Paul in person like 4 times in my life. One of the times was the last time when things escalated. After I captured the database, they organized a funeral for the father of Brie. And I have to tell you, right? I thought about saying this multiple times before, and I've never said it out of respect for the dead. I don't know if the man is really dead, right? And if he is, I would feel bad if he is, and I say this, right? But seeing all this deception and that this is really a network based on confidence and schemes, really, it occurred to me that maybe her father is not really dead. Maybe he is an important FSB agent, and they, to protect him, they faked that funeral. It's possible, but they created a funeral in 2024 for her father, and they invited me to that funeral. I've never been close to Brie or to any of them, but they made the point of asking supposedly Gloria Spina to accompany her to the funeral. The funeral was closed casket, I think it's called casket, I don't know. And so I could not see the face of the dead, right? I just saw something there. And Brie was crying, so maybe it was real, but maybe it was not. I don't know, right? But given that I had just captured the database, that I see that Brie is marked in this page of Reinaldo Medina as a central figure, put in the same photo as Suleima Villamizar. Like they're sharing the frame, right? So that's how important she is to this project. Um, it makes me wonder, right? And because I know this network is maintained by the secrecy given, or the loyalty really given by family relationships, and they made the decision to, organize that funeral for the father and invite me. I imagine it's possible, right? That it wasn't a real funeral. It was just an act to make me believe that person is out of the picture, right? So I would never even try to look for him, right? So it's possible, right? Now I have to tell you, there's more things in here. Senior, I would recommend authorities looking into this. I imagine, I'm not going to show it because it could be minors, and I don't want to put minors in here. But it's possible that it's a way for them. It would be a very secure way of marking prominent agents by placing their children in this page, because precisely they're minors. Even if a whistleblower like me figures this out, if they show the minor, then they will get in trouble. They will sue them for posting a minor's images on the internet, right? But because the system has they have ingested and indexed all the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter feeds, they know what the kid looks like, and they know that because you marking people marking Facebook, this is my dad, right, and this is my mom, so they know the relationship of that. So by identifying the kid, they can identify the parent, right? So I suspect the senior tab is important. Otherwise it wouldn't be there, right? They would have put something else. But you see, it's a way of, now this is a visual database, right? So this is a database in which every row is really an image and a relationship, because it's categorized by vertical, weddings or romantic interests, right? So if you go to weddings, I imagine there's people in there that are tied. The husband of probably the husband of Ibeth Escobar could possibly be there, for example, to give an idea, right? Things like that. But there was one thing that really concerned me. So there is a tab, okay, that is called food or something like that. Yes, this tab over here, food. If you click on that tab, and I'm telling you this to investigators so they can check this. If you click on the tab, you will see all the food items that I personally love. Like, these are things that I would not, all these photos, like the lasagna, like, the iced tea, like, these are things that at some point in my life I would have said, not at this moment, because at this moment, because of the situation, I cannot eat any of this because they would help me with the food. But at some point in my life, each one of these items, I would have said at some point in my life that I was addicted to them. Like, I couldn't stop eating them. Right, each one of them, without exception. There is not one item in this list of images that belongs to a thing that I have not been addicted to over the course of my life. So this is concerning, because what this could be a map on how to assassinate the target, right? Like, if you need to guess, which food item you need to contaminate to harm me, this is the perfect map. This is what I'm trying to say, right? Now, this is dangerous for Reinaldo Medina because he is participating in the creation of this website, right? And his identity is known and is prominent. Like he's an official sponsor of the Miss Houston beauty contest. So he cannot disappear like that, right? And he has relationship, as you can see, to all these agents because he has personally photographed them. He came to my house dozens of times, not only to photograph. Uh, oh, and this is interesting. Wow, this is amazing. I just understood something. In many of these occasions that he came to my home to photograph, so at the beginning it started with him photographing Zuleima Villamizar, okay, or Gloria Spina. I knew her by that name. But then the dynamic changed, and she wasn't in the photos anymore. But Reinaldo would tell us that he loved the house, like the house was beautiful, and he liked the pool, and it was the perfect place to take photos. And he would bring women to the house to take photos in the pool, right? So I mean, please don't laugh at me. Don't take this the wrong way. But I wasn't opposed to the idea. I mean, I'm a guy. Like, if somebody tells me I'm going to bring a group of models to your home to take photos of them in bathing suit, I'm going to agree. And I look, I look. Sorry for laughing. It's just too funny, right? The first time this happened, right? To be honest, the first time this happened, I mean, when Reinaldo proposed this setup in front of Gloria Spina, I look at her because I didn't know what her reaction would be. Like, if I acted too happy, she could. I thought she would get upset. Like she could get jealous. She could. I don't know. She could feel insecure. I don't know, right? So I was respectful and mindful of, her. So I didn't know how to react, right? So I look at her, and her response was, "That is a great idea, Reinaldo." And that way, the other Reinaldo, can have something to distract his eyes with. Like he can have something to look at, because it's good to have beautiful things to look at. She made a comment like that. So she was encouraging me to look at the women, which, to be honest, I thought it was strange, right? The first time this happened. But, I thought, well, maybe she is just open-minded. I'm nobody to judge. And, if this is, if this, sorry, I'm sorry for laughing, but I was so naive, right? That is just funny. Uh, uh, I thought at the time, right, when this happened the first time, I thought, well, if these are the cards that I'm dealt, I'm nobody to change the game, so I have to just deal with it, right? So I said, yes, of course, let's do this, right? And I would I would even help Ronaldo with the equipment and like setting up the equipment so to make sure that that things went smoothly. But sorry for it's just laughing, the level of innocence that I had, right? Of course, I imagine they were hoping that I would get involved with one of the models, right? Because those models are agents. Now, this is what I just understood. This thing of bringing them to my home is not random. It is because in the metadata of the camera of Reinaldo, it encodes the GPS location. So in those photos that are posted in there, in the metadata, there's also information that this photo was taken at Reinaldo Aguirre-Marcano's home, right? And that is an important linkage because who can get access to Reinaldo Aguirre's home? Somebody that Reinaldo Aguirre trusts, right? So this gives immediately a level of context and level of trust and closeness, physical closeness to the target that is recorded in a digital metadata that is impossible to see with the naked eye. This is why they brought these people to my home. There was a notable incident in which they brought a second photographer. So Reinaldo was taking photos of one model, and they brought another model, and Gloria was in the photo shoot, right? And this guy was taking photos of Gloria. Uh, so I think the fact that he took the photos of Gloria with his camera, I imagine the serial number of the camera could also be recorded in those. I don't know. I don't know if the EXIF metadata has the serial number, but it could have, for example, things like could fingerprint the camera, like the model, the length. That combination of setup could be a fingerprint that would signify that person, and that could mean this person is related to Gloria Spina in some capacity, right? I don't know what is the capacity, but I think that interaction is not random because they brought that guy to do that at my home, right? And to take photos of her specifically. So, but you see, it's a way of storing on a public website a lot of information that is visual, contextual. It encodes information about relationships, closeness, metadata, right? And it's in plain sight. They don't have to have a secret database anywhere. And then what they do is that with this website, because it's going to get ingested into Google, the Google classifier is going to be contaminated in a way with these relationships, right? So when they do a search on the image search, their system will get Reinaldo Medina. And that is the resolution they need. After that point, it's done, because then all they have to do is run the images of that website that match the likeness of the person against the other classifier that they have secretly. And that will tell them this is Brie Hardy, right? And that makes the system understand that Brie Hardy is related closely to Gloria Espina, who is really Suleima Molero Villamizar, and that she is harassing Reinaldo Galmarcan. Like, her goal is to, destroy Reinaldo Galmarcan. And all this is encoded without putting one line in one database. You see? It's exploiting. Well, I mean, they have to have this bizarro version somewhere, right? And this brings me to another point. In the previous segment, when I said, they're probably scoring these web pages, I thought that I said something like this called Muppet, okay? But you see, like, these systems that I'm describing, the image classifiers, the image search. I mean, the infrastructure. I'm telling you this as a Google search ranking engineer that worked in that for almost a decade, 9 years. I don't know. I know the level of sophistication of that stack and the level of the infrastructure. In the terms of engineers, I'm a rare breed, because I know about ranking, but I know a lot about infrastructure, and that is not common. Like, usually, and it's not because I'm smart. It's because they move me around in all these teams, and I learn, right? But this is normally what happens in the life of a Google engineer. Usually they get dedicated to one area. They either work in ranking, or they work in infrastructure, or they work in front end, or they work on something else. But because they were stealing my inventions, they tour me across the entire company, right? The entire search team. So I learned about all these topics. And I have to tell you, the level of infrastructure required to run these systems is immense. This is not something that you can steal the code in a pen drive and run it in your computer. You need a data center to run this, right? To run just the image classifier, because it's a distributed system that requires hundreds, if not thousands of computers. Actually, not hundreds, thousands of computers just for one instance of Muppet, right? You need 1,000 containers to run one instance of Muppet, right? And these numbers I'm telling you is from 2018. Like, it's probably more at this point. Anyhow, I'm telling you this because seeing that they're encoding information with these websites as well makes me understand that it's not like they stole the code. I mean, yes, they stole the code, but they have to be running these on Google data centers, and they need to keep this code up to date with the new releases of the new features of Google. So this made me think that maybe what they're doing is really they have a secret parallel Google inside Google. They have a company inside a company, right? So they have a parallel Google inside of Google that is running a dedicated data center, or a dedicated segment of the data center, or I don't know, I don't know exactly the infrastructure split, right? But this is something more systemic. This is not something that they stole the code, took it to China, and are running them secretly in China. Like, this is not, I don't think this is what happened. Looking at this, it's obvious to me that they must be running this inside of Google. So the level of participation of Google in this is high. It's not, Here, I'm going to go on a limb and guess. If I was to guess, I would guess this is happening in the Switzerland data center or in the Netherlands data center. The Switzerland, because they took me there 3 times to, quote unquote, work on projects, right? They wanted to steal my inventions in a way that was not traceable, right? That's why they took me specifically to Switzerland for weeks at a time, right? And so I think they wanted to give the inventions to an entity outside of Google, right? Outside of the perimeter. And, the easiest way was to bring me there, right? And to have me, because I would connect my computer to in the hotel or things like that, that would be outside of the network perimeter of Google. So it wouldn't be traceable. And they could still steal it with the actual people working on this project on the Netherlands, right? On Switzerland. And the Netherlands, because Lena technology is there, right? So if there is a data center of Google, in fact, let's do this investigation right now. Let's see in Gemini. if Google have a data center in Finland or the Netherlands, physically close to a data center of nanotechnology. The physically close is important because, as we learned through this process, the more distance, the more hops, the more risks of interception by authorities. So they can't be doing this at transatlantic. Right? Yes, there is a very direct physical proximity between two, primarily because Technologies actually uses Google data centers to host some of its services alongside. Okay, Finland. Yeah, Google has a massive data center in Mena, Finland, which is Europe North 1. So that's probably, if I was a betting man, I would guess this parallel Google is around there. And the Netherlands, Europe West. Right? And these would be things, and also these would be things outside of the jurisdiction of the US. So they can create a subpoena to go and see what is at the wrong. Right? Well, that's what they think. I imagine, probably the US, when this inevitably reaches authorities, they will use diplomatic channels to, get them there, right? I imagine, right? Piracy law, right? There's pirates have no country, so therefore they should be treated as such. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is probably what they're doing, right? Collocation, and then with a small level of collaboration, they can probably. I have to think about this, like how I would do it. But there's ways to do this without breaking the law, like technically breaking the law, right? Like without putting an external entity's controlled server inside of Google. Like there's ways to do this. But it's interesting, right? So now let me move on from that. And I found other examples, like for example, Alvin Cantero Mena, who is the romantic partner of Penelope Suarez, who was my romantic interest, right? I mean, he is the equivalent of Andres Salvador Mendez, but on the Penelope Suarez side. If you look for his name, Houston, you see, there's a lot of pages that talk about him. So he has sort of a public profile, okay? And this one is interesting, for example, because if you do this analysis that I mentioned before of counting the keywords and ranking them by frequency and comparing that to my profile, to my index, right, that they would have of me, the keywords match close to 1% cosine similarity. So he have, and these, he talks about things like, leadership because of key opinion leaders, right? It talks about nursing because Penelope is a nurse. Like it's a stuff with keywords that are very topical to me. It's the same technique, right? So this is the reason why I always thought to myself, well, if this is an intelligence network and they're so secretive, how they allow these targets to have these public web pages? I mean, it's like saying that, so like the CIA would allow a CIA operative to create a Facebook page when they're operating in Afghanistan, right? It would be crazy, like the person could be killed, right? The reason is because it's the web page, the topicality link in the business, in search engines, we call that topicality. This thing that I'm describing of the keywords and ranking them and grouping them together is called topicality. It's a topicality computation. So the main technology to make the link between targets and harassers really is Google topicality computation, which is what the Moped Scorer computes. So you see, it's obvious that what they're doing is that they have a bizarro version of Google to attack all the targets, right? It's the same thing that they did with Uber. They have Uber, which is driving passengers around, but they also have a weaponized version of Uber that is driving spies around, right? Guiding them to intercept targets to steal their data. So it's the same pattern. And I think this is at the end the pattern of racketeering, is the weaponization of benign technologies at massive scale to attack everybody and undermine democracy in countries that are still democratic, um, and try to turn them into communist countries. Um, I think that's really the. If I can give you a one-liner, that's what it would be. Um, yes. So let me check my. But like I hope that I'm doing a good job at conveying how important this discovery is. I mean, I think this is better than getting the database leakage on 2024, because this has the identity of agents that are important, like Rodolfo Vargas, that they can't erase. Right? I mean, these are the agents that they can't get rid of. And let me give you the best part. Authorities can use this to find the targets. How? It's easy. All you have to do is get my key opinion leaders database, because my key opinion leaders technology, which the Chinese were concentrated in stealing for years, does exactly this. It produces a list of keywords for anybody in the world. And I'm not going to get into details how I did it, but like, it has millions of people in that database, and it's hosted in Google. Like, all you have to do is find people that are prominent, and I derived these keywords from the research papers that like white papers and scientific papers, right? So all you have to do is get the keywords from key opinion leaders for important people that are in Congress, people that are judges, people that are in the DOJ, people that are doctors, like things like that, people that are prominent, right? You could find the keywords that are relevant to them by going by the things that they've written that are public, right? That's what key opinion leaders will give you. After you have those keywords, what you have to do is take the 10 top keywords for a person, for example, and with that you can build a Google query. Like, for example, if you do, let's do my example, right? If you look myself in key opinion leaders, you will find PHP, Python. You will find things like SLK, right? You will find things like Google, search, AI, right? Machine learning, things like that. You take those keywords and you do a search for those keywords in Houston. You would get, in the top 100 results, you would get Rodolfo Vargas, because he has PHP, he has things that he has ND, he has things that are important to me. He will rank high, and then you would have identified Rodolfo Vargas that way. So what you have to do is identify people that are important for government, for democracy, really, right? Find them first. That's the first stage. Then find the keywords for each one of them in key opinion leaders, and then construct the Google query that has the top 10 keywords and the city where they live. Because you have to put the city to restrict the set of results. That's why I put Alvin, Cantero, Mena, Houston, or Reinaldo, Medina, Houston, because they're not silly, right? The nanotechnologies probably created to create confusion, right? Created other pages for Reinaldo Medina in other cities, right? So for example, in Washington. So if somebody from the DOJ in Washington is looking for Reinaldo Medina, they will come up with the Reinaldo Medina in Washington, not the one in Houston, right? But you have to localize this to the target's location in the query that you do. Once you do this, take the top 100 results and concentrate on people that have these conditions. One, they have a knowledge graph entity created in the knowledge graph of Google. And second, that knowledge graph entity is physically located or tied to the physical location where the target lives. Like, for example, Rodolfo Vargas. His entity is located in Houston, right? Where I have a house. So probably Rodolfo Vargas is the only one in the top 100 results that meets these two characteristics, and that gives you Rodolfo Vargas, right? That's the giveaway. It would also work with Reinaldo Medina. It would also work with Alvin, Cantero, Mena, because of Penelope, the Norse, and all those keywords, right? Leaders is the keyword that ties him to me, because he's in the medical field and I'm not in the medical field. But my company, Key Opinion Leaders, is in the medical field. So that's why they put all those medical keywords in his page and put the word leaders a lot of times in that page. to increase the topicality for key opinion leaders and medical topics that would make it rank for my entity on their side, on their Pizarro Google. You see? So what I'm telling you is I'm giving you basically not only the algorithm, but I'm also giving you the data because the data is free. I'll give it to the authorities, right? I don't care. Um, so you have the data and you have the algorithm on how to find the harassers of everybody at planet scale. So this is civilization. This is better than the database that was leaked to me in 2024 because yes, that has the crypto payments that can be recovered and the money can be, taken away from them. But this gives identities, which is even better because they may have other assets hidden in, I don't know, other things, gold or things that are not, crypto. Right? Um, so anyhow, I think this is it's a it's a good one. I hope that this helps everybody. So with this thought, I'm gonna close this demo. I'm gonna think more about this because there's more gold in this mine to be mined. And I'm gonna keep thinking about this thing. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Mm. Okay, bye-bye.